That's what we're relegated to in the United States House of free stuff. But today, we just voted to extend the funding of government with a continuing resolution, which is going to barrel us towards trillion-dollar deficit this year, give or take. Who knows?
Congressman Roy delivers a fiery, no-holds-barred speech that leaves Democrats completely stunned and speechless. He calls out the failures of the Biden administration, exposes the crisis at the southern border, and reminds America of the values we must defend. His passion and truth-telling earned him a rare standing ovation in Congress. In this video, I break down this historic moment and explain why Roy's leadership is exactly what America needs right now.
For 2021, the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Roy, is now recognized for 60 minutes as a designee of the Minority Leader.
I thank the Speaker. I'm fascinated to learn that I serve in the United States House of free stuff, because that's what I've been hearing nonstop this entire week. There's an unlimited supply of money and resources, apparently, an unlimited supply of dollars that we can continue to print while devastating our economy, devastating the American dollar, and transforming our society by encouraging Americans to believe that there's a free lunch. And there ain't no free lunch. My wife is the product of a single mom growing up in Texas. Her mom worked multiple jobs to send her to college. She worked hard to be able to go to college. She left with $70-something thousand of student loans despite going to 2 top public universities in the state of Texas. And she's not asking for her loans to get repaid because she went there with a free will. She went there and made a choice. She could have chosen a different path. She chose to take the debt. I did the same thing when I went to law school at the University of Texas. I might not have chosen to go to law school if the loans hadn't been available, and that might be fine. What's the fundamental problem? Why has the cost of education skyrocketed in my lifetime at an inflation rate multiple times over virtually every other product and service in this country except for health care? Why is it up something like 3,000%? Is it perhaps because we're subsidizing the holy heck out of it? Just thinking perhaps that there might be a correlation to the availability, massive widespread availability of subsidized student loans, the massive subsidization of K through 12 education and higher ed? Do we think there might be a correlation to why the costs have skyrocketed so much? But no. My colleagues on the other side of the aisle now walk in here and say, we don't want to, we're not the party of big spenders. We got a chart here with $1.7 trillion on it with another chart saying cancel student debt. Who's paying for that? Does anybody in this body give a rat's rear end about who's paying for anything at all? No. Oh no, then they'll come out here and say $3 trillion of tax cuts. They don't care about economic growth and opportunity, but fine. Why don't we actually have a conversation about spending and taxes? No, we don't do that. We just spend money we don't have. That's what we did today in the continuing resolution to keep this government running. Oh my gosh, panic ensues if you dare question whether or not the government must be funded Saturday morning at 12:01 in the morning. What will the American people do? How will they function if the United States House of free stuff isn't doling out free stuff? No one's in this chamber, of course, just reminding the American people how this place doesn't work. We're now on 5.5 straight years of no amendments being offered on the floor of this august chamber. I'd just like to remind the American people every once in a while that what they saw about how a bill becomes a law is a complete fraud. See, there's a handful of people who get into a room and they decide what you're going to vote on. And the Speaker knows it's true, and my colleagues on the other side of the aisle know it's true, and my colleagues on this side of the aisle know it's true because they did it when they were in the majority just as much as my colleagues on the other side of the aisle did it when they were in the majority. We get a massive bill dropped on our desk and we say, take it or leave it. Go offer an amendment in rules, they say. never taken, never accepted, always pre-chosen, always pre-gamed out. This is deliberation and debate. This is the constitutional order. What value is there for an election certificate if you can't use it? You come to the floor and you want to offer an amendment in good faith to try to make a piece of legislation better, and you can't do it. We got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 people max who decide everything that goes on in this chamber in all of their infinite wisdom. And then we come down and we look at the board and it's party line votes, and then it's walk out on the steps and go give a speech and go to the press and go on Twitter and go on Facebook and go talk about why you're voting no or yes. That's what we're relegated to in the United States House of free stuff. But today, we just voted to extend the funding of government with a continuing resolution, which is going to barrel us towards trillion-dollar deficit this year, give or take. Who knows? Does it matter? Does anybody know what the difference is between a trillion or 1.2 trillion? Does anybody know the difference between $29 trillion of debt or $30 trillion of debt? Nobody knows or cares in this chamber. Literally not a lick. We never talk about it. And then each side comes down on the floor and offers more spending for whatever their priority is. Defense, non-defense, mandatory spending, non-mandatory spending. If the unbelievably terrible circumstance occurred at Friday night at midnight of this government daring to pause, do the American people know that about 82% of it is on autopilot with mandatory spending? I mean, does that matter when you walk out and a gaggle of reporters come up, with bated breath? Oh no, there might be a government shutdown. It always gets paid back. 82% of it keeps running. And there's never a serious debate about what's actually happening here in the United States of America. We never sit down like a family or a small business, roll our sleeves up and decide how to spend money. Do you imagine if we actually had to adhere to a budget like any business or American family, and we actually had to sit down, Madam Speaker, at that table and not leave this chamber until we said our budget is $3 trillion or $4 trillion, whatever it is. Here's our income. Here's what we can spend. That's all we can do. Let's figure out our priorities. Well, we disagree. Do you want to fund NEA? Do you want to fund the Department of Education, XYZ? Do you want to fund the military? Do you want to fund specific B-52 bombers? Do you want to fund healthcare? Do you want to fund border security? Make a choice. We never make a choice, ever. Both parties, by the way, both leaders, we never make a choice. All we do is preen and posture and come down here with massive bills that have some of our priorities depending on who's in the majority. That's it. And again, we're relegated to being the United States House of free stuff. You got to call it free stuff because we're just printing the money to do the stuff. We're down here talking about, we got to cancel the student debt. Well, man, wouldn't that be lovely? Who cares about the people who have already worked hard their whole lives to pay off their student loans, whether they be black, brown, white, male, female, who cares? They've worked their whole life. They paid off their student loans. They did what they were supposed to do, or they're in the middle of paying off their student loans. Oh, no, let's just come down here. One of my colleagues just said $50,000, President Biden. He just picked that number out of the air. $50,000 of free stuff. Here you go. Somebody else chose not to go to college. Somebody else started a business, worked hard, borrowed money to run a business. Guess what? That money also had interest to my colleague from Michigan who was down here talking about, the pain of interest. As if it's not as old as time, as if it's not biblical to say, hey, I don't have the money to do something. I would like to have the money to do something. How might I get the money to do something? I don't know. 1, get a job and earn the money. Save the money. 2, ask for it from somebody who loves you. 3, borrow it. Okay, now what do you do with that? Go do something.
Welcome back to Alyson Reacts. Before we dive in, make sure you hit that subscribe button and like this video. Every click, every share helps us spread the truth that the mainstream media wants buried. We're here to stand firm, speak boldly, and defend the values that built this nation. Now, let's talk about Congressman Chip Roy. This was not just another speech on the House floor, it was a thunderous call to action. Chip Roy stood up and spoke from the heart, with a passion and clarity that Washington doesn't hear often enough. He wasn't there to mince words or play political games. He was there to speak the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it made the Democrats in the room. He laid out the failures of this administration and the Democrat-led agenda. He spoke about the reality families are living through, skyrocketing prices at the grocery store, paychecks that don't stretch like they used to, and an economy being strangled by reckless spending. He reminded everyone that Washington is more focused on virtue signaling than solving real problems. And he made it clear that the American people are tired of empty promises and failed leadership. Roy also didn't hold back on the border crisis. He pointed out how dangerous the situation has become, how cartels, criminals, and traffickers are taking advantage of weak policies, while hardworking Americans in border states are left to deal with the fallout. He called out Democrats for pretending the border is secure while communities across America are overwhelmed with crime and drugs pouring in. His message was simple. Leadership means protecting your people, and Democrats have failed to do exactly that. What really stood out in his speech was his reminder of what America is supposed to stand for: freedom, accountability, and government by the people. He called out the hypocrisy of those who lecture Americans about democracy while they push censorship, weaponize federal agencies, and ignore the Constitution whenever it doesn't fit their agenda. And then came the silence. Democrats, who are usually quick to clap back with talking points and cheap soundbites, had nothing to say. They were left stunned. Because when someone speaks the raw truth, no spin can cover it up. That silence said everything. And then something extraordinary happened. Chip Roy got a standing ovation. Not just polite applause. A real, powerful, unified response to the courage he showed. That is rare in Washington, and it proves that his words hit deep. My reaction? This is what real leadership looks like. Not polished, focus-grouped lines crafted by consultants. Not empty speeches meant to score political points. This was a man standing up and saying what millions of Americans feel in their hearts. And that's why it resonated so powerfully. We've seen far too many Republicans stay quiet or play nice while the left bulldozes their agenda through. But Chip Roy showed that if you stand strong, if you speak with conviction, and if you fight for the people who sent you to Washington, the truth will cut through the noise. America needs more leaders like this, men and women willing to take the heat, face down the opposition, and keep speaking out even when the establishment tries to silence them. The question now is, will this moment inspire others? Will more Republicans step up with the same fire, or will too many keep sitting on the sidelines? Because our country is at a tipping point. The future of our freedoms, our security, and our children's opportunities depends on leaders who refuse to back down. Chip Roy just lit a fire in Congress, and it's up to others to carry that flame forward. So, what do you think? Was Chip Roy's speech the kind of bold stand America needs more of? Should more Republicans follow his lead and call out the hypocrisy head-on? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget, like this video, share it, and subscribe so we can keep getting the truth out there and standing strong together.